You're listening to Campus Killings, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including The Murder in My Family, DNA ID, Zodiac Speaking, Scene of the Crime, Missing Persons, Beyond Bizarre True Crime, and Killer Communications. All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
Hi, Megan, and welcome back to our Campus Killings community. We hope that our listeners had a great summer, and for those of us who are working in education, we hope that you're having a great start to the new school year. And we're doing something a little new this season. We've gotten so many amazing requests from our listeners over the past 2 years that we are devoting the whole entire season 4, to your case suggestions.
Wow, we have that many. That is
yeah, so we have enough to take us a few seasons.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes. All 20 episodes belong to the listeners this year. So if you haven't sent us your case suggestion yet, go ahead and send us your request on our website, and you too might hear your case on the air.
Very cool.
Yes. So to start off our season today, I'd like to give a big shout out to listener Allison T. for alerting us to Hannah Graham's story. There were some serious surprises in this case, and as sad as all of our stories are that we cover, I think you'll find that this one has a satisfying sense of justice.
Oh, that's nice, because we don't always cover ones like that. This name sounds familiar to me, too.
Does it?
Yes.
No, I think you're thinking of Heather Graham. She's famous.
I know who Hannah Graham is. No, I'm really thinking of
Okay.
this person, but I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but
Okay, well, we'll see. Before we jump into Hannah's story, however, let's go ahead and learn a little bit about the epicenter where this all took place, and that is at the University of Virginia. Founded in 1819 by Thomas Jefferson, the University of Virginia began on the property of another founding father, and that would be James Monroe, and this is in the town of Charlottesville.
Cool.
And unlike many other universities of the early United States, where the only majors available were law, medicine, or divinity, Jefferson's university had 8 independent schools, which included art, mathematics, chemistry, and philosophy, along with all of the other usual majors. And Jefferson himself was reportedly so involved with running the school that he often hosted faculty dinners and student events at his estate.
So cool.
And after his death, the university continued to grow. In fact, it survived the Civil War when most other Southern universities closed, and they began growing exponentially in the early 20th century. So much so that they added a satellite campus in Fredericksburg specifically for female students in 1944. And that's actually early to have an exclusive female college.
What year did you say that was?
1944.
Yeah, that's great. It's progressive.
Yeah.
Well, it already sounded progressive based on the fact that they had more majors than...
Mm-hmm. The main campus in Charlottesville remained exclusively white and male until a 1960s civil rights suit forced them to become integrated and co-ed by the early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
There were also several student strikes and protests in the 1960s, and the school faced some infamous publicity in the 21st century when it became the location for a Unite the Right rally in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I didn't realize this, but none of the participants were even students.
Oh, I didn't realize that either. No.
Yeah. Despite these events, the university, best known as UVA, is Virginia's #1 college and ranks 4th in U.S. News and World Report's top public schools. The school has also won the title of first-rated business and law schools in the world, according to the Financial Times and the U.S. World Report. They've also won the title of first-rated business and law schools in the world, according to the Financial Times and the U.S. News and World Report. And as a public institution, they have a very affordable tuition for in-state students. So it was no surprise that 18-year-old Hannah Graham from Fairfax County, Virginia, decided she wanted to attend UVA.
Mm-hmm.
Originally born in England, Hannah moved to Virginia with her family when she was only 5 years old. By all accounts, Hannah fully embraced American culture, and by high school, she was involved in pretty much everything that one could be involved in as a teenager. She was incredibly active in her high school music department. She played piano and saxophone, as well as being a section leader in the high school's marching band. She was also a huge sports lover, excelling at softball when marching band was out of season. Hannah was also an excellent student and was described by her high school teachers as always striving for perfection in everything she did. She could also be a little intense.
How so?
She approached things with an all-consuming nature, but at the same time, her friends described her as sunny and warm with a deep sense of empathy and desire to help others.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anyone intense, do you?
When you were reading the description, I'm like, uh-oh.
In 2011, Hannah joined Habitat for Humanity and traveled to Alabama to help rebuild people's homes after a deadly tornado.
See, she used that intensity for really good things, so.
Yes. And when it came to picking a college major, Hannah didn't think small. She decided to major in French with the goal of pursuing a career in global public health so that she could make a larger impact on the world's health and wellness.
Wow.
And she was well on her way, as in the summer between her freshman and sophomore years, she participated in a study abroad semester to France so that she could immerse herself in the language. She loved the experience and planned to join a special French program at UVA in the spring of her sophomore year, and this would put her on track for studies in public health. But tragically, Hannah would vanish only a few weeks into the beginning of that fall semester. On September 12th of 2014, Hannah went to an off-campus party with a few friends.
Okay.
After spending a few hours drinking, Hannah said she didn't feel great and wanted to leave. And while her friends offered to walk her back to the dorms, she said that she was fine to go herself and she left. Around 1 a.m., several text exchanges had gotten more and more difficult to decipher. Hannah had texted her friends that she was lost while trying to look for another party. And though they tried to reach out to her to find out where she was, she simply stopped answering them.
Oh.
By the early morning of September 13th, Hannah had gone silent on all of her social media platforms, and her friends hadn't heard anything from her via text or phone. And as we know from so many of our other cases and just from living our day-to-day, this is incredibly abnormal behavior for college-aged people in the 21st century.
Yes.
Her friends quickly reported her missing, and I'm happy to say that Charlottesville police took the case very seriously and immediately began searching for Hannah.
Good.
They pulled surveillance from everywhere around Charlottesville from the night before, and they found evidence of Hannah in several locations.
Really? Okay.
She was first spotted leaving the off-campus party at around midnight, and she was by herself. Footage then picked her up walking past a pub called McGrady's around an hour later. In the video, she stumbled around a lot, and investigators took this to mean that she may have been inebriated enough to have lost her bearings.
Okay.
About 10 minutes later, footage from a Shell gas station close to Charlottesville downtown area showed Hannah jogging by.
Jogging by now?
Yeah.
Okay.
It didn't look like she was running from something. You know how sometimes when you're just like in a rush, you start to kind of hop around, jogging a little? I don't know. If you're drunk, maybe more so. You don't do that. Okay.
I'm just lazy is the problem, so I don't
Okay,
jog.
okay. All right. 5 minutes later, she was also spotted walking the pedestrian mall in downtown. And this is downtown Charlottesville, and so both sides of the streets are lined with bars and restaurants, so it's a pretty lively area. And although it was around 1 a.m., there were still quite a few people walking around the area, but one particular person caught investigators' eyes when they were looking at this footage.
Okay.
In the footage, they saw a large, tall man with long dreadlocks walking on the opposite side of the street from Hannah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the video clearly showed him backtrack after Hannah walked by him, and then he crossed the street to follow her.
Oh, God.
A different CCTV showed Hannah and the man walking together a few minutes later, and the man clearly had his arm around her back. Witnesses from that night recalled seeing the two walk into a bar called Tempo, where the man brought Hannah a drink at around 1:10 a.m. Many patrons recalled that Hannah looked very drunk and that the man had his arm around her the whole time that they were at the bar. The man was described as someone who, quote, did not look friendly, and another witness claimed that they heard Hannah say, quote, I'm not getting into that car with you, when the man brought her to a 1998 Chrysler that was parked not far from the restaurant. Unfortunately, it didn't appear that any of the witnesses called 911 about this situation. You know, it's possible that the onlookers thought that there was some sort of domestic dispute.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to get involved. We've seen that before.
Yeah.
But regardless, after Hannah was seen refusing to get into the man's car, there were no more sightings of her by either surveillance or eyewitnesses.
Hmm.
And this always makes me think, like, you know, people don't want to overreact, but sometimes I think it's better to err on the side of caution as much as we don't want to overreact in case it's a private matter.
Yeah.
You know, if you have to trust your gut sometimes, and if you think something doesn't seem right, it can't hurt to call it in.
Yeah. I mean, it could hurt, someone, but It's probably better safe than sorry. I would never blame anyone for not doing that because in fact,
I
it sounds
totally
like they could have assumed it was a domestic. But yeah, if
Yeah.
there's ever like I'm definitely an overreactor. I definitely am. So
I'd rather be an overreactor than an underreactor, I think.
I think so.
So no more sightings. There were also no more cell phone pings. And police from both Charlottesville and the surrounding towns spent the next 5 days combing the area with thousands of civilian volunteers.
But they also had this car, or just a description of this car?
It seems like it was just a description at this point.
All right.
But no plates or anything.
Right, okay.
By September 20th, so many civilians had joined the search for Hannah that it is still to this date the largest missing person search ever conducted in the state of Virginia.
Wow.
Yeah. The news had her image plastered on every screen. Volunteers passed out thousands of flyers with her photo and last known whereabouts. And UVA students' social media feeds were swarmed with tweets and Snapchats of Hannah's disappearance.
Oh my goodness.
While civilian volunteers helped law enforcement search, investigators sought the identity of the man they saw in the footage.
Mm-hmm.
So this is clearly a person of interest.
I think so, yeah.
And now, a brief word from our sponsors.
We all know that feeling. You finally manage to get away on vacation and the worrying starts. Will that bogus "beware of dogs" sign keep your home safe? What about that fake camera you set up? And will someone finally find your old hide and key rock? That's where ADT comes in. All that stuff, it's safe-ish. It seems fine when you don't really think about it, but you know it truly doesn't work. Instead, ADT provides security solutions that keep you actually safe, giving you real peace of mind. Because vacation is supposed to be, relaxing. Don't settle for safe-ish. Visit ADT.com today to learn more. We all know that feeling. You finally manage to get away on vacation and the worrying starts. Will that bogus "beware of dogs" sign keep your home safe? What about that fake camera you set up? And will someone finally find your old hide and key rock? That's where ADT comes in. All that stuff, it's safe-ish. It seems fine when you don't really think about it, but you know it truly doesn't work. Instead, ADT provides security solutions that keep you actually safe, giving you real peace of mind. Because vacation is supposed to be, relaxing. Don't settle for safe-ish. Visit ADT.com today to learn more.
On September 19th, as thousands of people were searching the Charlottesville area for Hannah, police were able to identify the man in the CCTV footage as 32-year-old Jesse Matthew Jr. Now, he is a Charlottesville native, and he worked as a medical van driver for the local hospital, and he also drove a cab in the evenings.
Okay.
He did one more thing. He was a volunteer football coach for his old high school. And while he had a few traffic stops with police here and there, he had no serious prior record.
All right.
But he was the last person who had been seen with Hannah, and police needed to talk to him quick. Much to their surprise, he showed up on his own accord to the Charlottesville police station. But he did end up requesting a lawyer when police asked to talk to him.
I don't fault anyone for that.
Nope, that's what you should do.
Yeah, that's,
Innocent, guilty, doesn't matter.
Right.
Lawyer.
Without
evidence to hold him, police watched their only person of interest walk out of the door without being able to answer any questions for them.
Oh, yeah.
However, while investigators waited for the approval of a search warrant for Jesse's car and apartment, he was spotted by police only a few hours later driving at a very high speed out of the Charlottesville area in his grandmother's vehicle.
Oh my God, he was making a run for it?
He's in a different car than the car that he normally drove. And yes, he's driving pretty quickly and he's leaving town.
Mm-hmm.
And then bank records would later show that he had withdrawn almost all of his money.
Oh, yeah, he's running.
Yep. 2 days later, with warrants finally approved, investigators searched Jesse's apartment and they found a cell phone with a missing SIM card that had been in service up until the night of Hannah's disappearance.
Oh, so they found her phone. Okay.
It was a cell phone with a missing SIM card. At this point, they didn't know whose phone it was.
Okay.
So I can't say for sure that it was Hannah's. It could have just been a cell phone he left behind.
Mm-hmm. All right.
But either way, they also collected several items of clothing, and there was a full forensic swab of his car that was performed.
Mm.
On September 23rd, about 10 days after Hannah went missing, police officially named Jesse Matthew as the suspect in her disappearance, and they issued a warrant for his arrest for abduction with the intent to defile, which in Virginia is a term for a sexual kidnapping.
Right.
Wanted posters with his photograph were circulated across national news stations and every social media platform.
Wow.
Because at this point, they don't know where he is.
Mm-hmm.
He's no longer in town. Luckily, only 1 day later, a woman from Galveston, Texas, was walking along a beach and she saw Jesse camping in a tent not far from the water. Luckily, she recognized him from the wanted posters on the news from the night before, and she contacted local police, and Jesse Matthew was quickly apprehended and extradited back to Charlottesville. Again, just another example of, being vigilant. And,
Yeah.
This woman, she saw this guy on the news and then it clicked in her head that this was the guy. First of all, I would have been so scared. Can you imagine?
I know. I was thinking the same thing. I hope she wasn't a loner. Like, she must have been like, whoa. Yeah, there's this dangerous person. But yes, she called. Wonderful.
Yes. By September 29th, forensic results showed that Hannah's DNA was found on the door of Jesse's car and on a pair of shorts found in his apartment. Actually, the shorts contained DNA from both him and Hannah.
Yeah.
And while investigators had the link they needed to pressure Jesse about Hannah's whereabouts, Jesse's DNA was about to uncover a whole lot more.
Oh, my gosh.
After Jesse's sample was uploaded to CODIS, investigators were shocked to see that it got matched to not one, but 2 unsolved cases.
Sexual assaults?
Well, the first was to unknown male DNA found on a woman's bloody T-shirt that had been hung on the bushes outside a UVA dormitory back in 2010.
Oh.
This T-shirt had belonged to a missing woman named Morgan Dana Harrington, a 20-year-old Virginia Tech student who had attended a Metallica concert at UVA's John Paul Jones Arena on October 17th, 2009.
Oh, my God.
Now, according to her friends who had gone with her, at one point during the show, she left to use the bathroom and somehow ended up getting locked out of the arena. Unfortunately, the venue had a no re-entry policy, and Morgan had left her car keys back at her seat, so she texted her friends that she would just try to get a taxi to take her home and she would catch up with them later.
And he was a taxi driver, right?
Well, she was last spotted by an eyewitness on a bridge not far from the stadium, and she was presumably trying to find a ride. Unfortunately, she never made it home. Like Hannah Graham, Charlottesville showed up for Morgan. Only days after she disappeared in 2009, hundreds of volunteers helped law enforcement comb the area looking for the missing 20-year-old. Local news outlets also ran her photo and story over and over in hopes of finding out any information about her whereabouts. Volunteers also handed out flyers with her picture and campaigned to, quote, bring Morgan home for Christmas, while her parents got on the news every night begging for information on their daughter.
It's like just the worst nightmare ever, and I just can't imagine it.
I know. But unlike Hannah's case, there was very little evidence in Morgan's case. In fact, all the police had to go on was Morgan's purse, cell phone, and student ID, which were found in an overflowing parking lot not far from the stadium the day after her disappearance. And then it would be a few weeks later when that bloody T-shirt was found by a UVA student hanging from the bushes outside of a dorm room.
Right.
Covered in blood, the shirt contained unknown male DNA. And at that point, everyone knew that the likelihood of Morgan being found alive was very slim.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And then 4 months after her disappearance, in January of 2010, a farmer contacted police saying that he had found human remains on his land. And tragically, when tested, the badly decomposed body was identified as Morgan Harrington, and there was plenty of evidence for pathologists to rule her death as a very violent homicide. She had several broken bones and skull fractures. Now, at the time, that male DNA was run through CODIS, but there were no hits.
Ah, I see. Okay.
Well, actually, I don't want to say there were no hits. It didn't come up with any suspects, but there was a hit, because it matched another unknown sample from a violent rape that happened in Fairfax, Virginia in 2005.
I mean, okay.
Yeah, so I know that you already have a profile here.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that uncommon for someone who also started with a violent sexual assault to then escalate. So.
Well, actually, you got that right, because in 2005, there was a victim who survived. She was publicly known by the alias RG, and she had been walking back to her apartment from a grocery store when she had been grabbed from behind and carried across the street to a wooded area and severely beaten. Now, the victim fought back, but the assailant choked her out and threatened to break her neck if she didn't stop fighting.
God.
During the altercation, she was violently raped, and the only reason why the attack stopped is because a car pulled up in an adjacent parking lot and their headlights flooded the wooded area. At this point, her attacker ran into the woods, and RG struggled towards the parking lot, where the man in the vehicle called 911 and waited for her until an ambulance arrived. So, in fact, she was so badly beaten that she was described by a witness as, quote, near dead as she was loaded in the back of the ambulance.
Oh, that's not the situation that I thought it was. I thought, like, you hear cases where someone sexually assaults a woman and then they testify, and then the next time he's not going to let her live, but it sounds like he was going on his way to kill her as well.
You're right. I think this was a case of, the luck of a bystander who happened to intervene. And while she was able to physically recover and provide law enforcement with a description of her rapist, the police were never able to identify him. That would be until Jesse Matthews' DNA was taken from the shorts found at his apartment and loaded into CODIS in 2014.
Okay.
A direct DNA sample was taken from Jesse to solidify the match, and forensics revealed that the match gave a probability of 1 in 9 million that he was the assailant in the 2005 sexual assault.
Wow.
He was charged very quickly in this case, and he went to stand trial after submitting a not guilty plea.
He went to trial?
He did. This is for the rape in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And the victim, she had moved back to her home country in Asia, but she agreed to return to take the witness stand and tell the jury her story.
Wow.
And actually, the lead detective on the case would later say that her testimony was one of the bravest things he had ever seen because she was forced to relive the worst night of her life.
Mm-hmm.
She was only 5 feet away from the man who almost killed her.
It's incredible. I mean, the bravery that takes. It really is incredible.
Yes. And in an unexpected turn of events, right before the jury was sent out for deliberation, Jesse's defense team called for a meeting with the prosecution and the judge. What do you think happened here?
Plea
After
deal.
wasting everyone's time and re-traumatizing the victim,
Of course.
the judge announced that Jesse was taking an Alford plea, which just infuriates me.
I hate Alford pleas. I really
know.
do. But I'm sure also after the powerful testimony, his attorney was probably like,
Yep.
you're sunk.
Yep. And, we talked about this in many episodes before, both here and on Women in Crime. But an Alford plea is basically a guilty plea, but the defendant does not admit to the criminal act, but they acknowledge that the prosecution has enough evidence for a conviction. And this pisses me off because this is pretty much still denying that you did anything, but just saying, fine, I'll take this plea because the evidence is so strong, even though I'm not going to admit to doing anything.
The only flip side to that coin, because I hate Alford pleas, the only flip side is that sometimes really innocent people can use an Alford plea, and that makes sense to me, but it's hard to decipher, right? When it allows someone to, cowardly escape guilt, that's the thing that bothers me.
Yeah, that's a good point. And many innocent people have used Alford pleas in the past. But, Alford plea, it doesn't really change. Like,
the outcome is still the same.
Yeah, in practice, the outcome is the same. But yes, if I was innocent, I do see, the symbolism is important of it.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so regardless of him taking the plea, the judge still handed down 3 life sentences for attempted capital murder, abduction, and sexual assault.
Good.
And it was just as RG's case was heating up that Hannah Graham's body was discovered.
Oh.
We'll return after a brief word from our sponsors.
We all know that feeling. You finally manage to get away on vacation and the worrying starts. Will that bogus "Beware of Dogs" sign keep your home safe? What about that fake camera you set up? And will someone finally find your old hide and key rock? That's where ADT comes in. All that stuff, it's safe-ish. It seems fine when you don't really think about it, but you know it truly doesn't work. Instead, ADT provides security solutions that keep you actually safe, giving you real peace of mind. Because vacation is supposed to be, relaxing. Don't settle for safe-ish. Visit ADT.com today to learn more. We all know that feeling. You finally manage to get away on vacation and the worrying starts. Will that bogus "Beware of Dogs" sign keep your home safe? What about that fake camera you set up? And will someone finally find your old hide and key rock? That's where ADT comes in. All that stuff, it's safe-ish. It seems fine when you don't really think about it, but you know it truly doesn't work. Instead, ADT provides security solutions that keep you actually safe, giving you real peace of mind. Because vacation is supposed to be, relaxing. Don't settle for safe-ish. Visit ADT.com today to learn more.
On October 18th of 2014, 5 weeks after Hannah had gone missing, investigators located her skeletonized remains on an abandoned property about 12 miles from UVA. And this was only about 6 miles from where Morgan Harrington's body had been found in 2010.
Yeah.
Now, the clothing that Hannah had last been seen in were near her skeleton and all showed signs of being violently removed. There were holes in her jeans, there were broken zippers on her shirt, and all of her clothing was inside out. The nature of her death could only be ruled as a homicide since the decomposition was too far along for any definitive cause of death.
Mm-hmm.
However, a forensic anthropologist was able to determine that Hannah had been punched hard enough in the face for her nasal bones to be fractured.
Oh, my gosh.
With both Hannah's body located and a suspect finally identified in Morgan Harrington's murder, as well as in Hannah's, the state began to make their case against Jesse Matthew. And I don't think anyone will be surprised to hear that they would be seeking the death penalty for capital murder in Hannah's case.
That was my next question.
I do want to say, though, I couldn't find definitive proof of this, but all articles seem to agree that they only sought it in Hannah's case because he was physically on camera with her as the last person to see her alive, therefore making his predatory behavior premeditative. Where in Morgan's case, there wasn't enough evidence to show premeditation.
Okay.
Before the trials could commence, the courts announced that Jesse was taking a plea deal in which the death penalty would be off the table if he agreed to plead guilty to all charges in both Hannah and Morgan's murders. Now, this would include premeditated murder, sexual assault, and kidnapping. And he would take that deal. He officially pled guilty on March 2nd, 2016, and 3 weeks later, a judge sentenced him to 4 consecutive life sentences with no possibility of parole or geriatric release, which I love that they added that. I haven't heard that as an add-on in many cases.
Yes, that makes sense that they added that now because there are older defendants who are getting releases, and it's appropriate for some of them, but I'm glad they specified, no way, this guy's never leaving.
And a lot of states call it compassionate release, if I understand it right.
Yeah.
But I guess it's the same, right?
Yes.
And keep in mind, this sentence would be in addition to the 3 life sentences he had been given for RG's case. So we're talking a total of 7 life sentences with absolutely no possibility of parole.
Even though the cases didn't wind up going to trial, did they uncover other evidence in their investigations for these crimes?
Yeah, that's a good question. I did manage to find the statement of fact for both Hannah and Morgan's cases, and these would lay out all the evidence that would have been presented in case he hadn't accepted a plea.
Okay.
Which I wish we can find these in all cases.
I wish that as well.
Yeah, so let's start with Morgan Harrington's case. In this case, investigators were able to determine that Jesse was working for the cab company Access Taxi on the night of Morgan's disappearance, and that he had driven a group of people to the Metallica concert who witnessed Morgan standing outside of the arena by herself. It was also determined through Jesse's personal phone records and the Nextel records of his taxi cab that Jesse had considerable activity around the Charlottesville area until about 9:30 p.m.
Okay.
Then there was no recorded activity until about an hour and a half later, at which point Jesse's phone pinged off the cell tower in close proximity to the farmland where Morgan's body was eventually found.
Okay.
Investigators also found that Jesse sold the van that he had been driving the night of Morgan's disappearance, and when it was recovered, the front passenger seat had clearly been replaced and had different upholstery than the rest of the car.
All right.
I mean, we're talking pretty strong evidence.
This is very strong evidence.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm sure his lawyers, urged him to take a plea.
I would imagine yes.
Yeah. I mean, and of course, Jesse's DNA was found on Morgan's bloody T-shirt that had been discarded in the bushes in front of one of UVA's dorms.
Right.
Okay, on to Hannah's case. Besides the extensive surveillance footage that we already discussed, clearly showing Jesse doubling back to follow and put his arm around Hannah in the downtown district, there were tons of witness statements speaking to his inappropriate behavior towards women prior to him coming across Hannah.
Ah, there it is.
Between 9:30 p.m. of September 12th and 1 a.m. on September 13th, Jesse went to several bars along the downtown street where multiple female witnesses gave statements about his inappropriate sexual behavior. We've heard this in so many cases before, and this is kind of that ramp up. It's almost like someone's out on the prowl and then they keep getting rejected and it ends up culminating in a very violent attack.
Anger.
In the first bar, he immediately singled out a woman sitting at the bar by herself, and even though she told him she had a boyfriend, he repeatedly commented on how soft her lips looked and touched her hands to the point where she sat on them to keep them away from him.
Oh my gosh.
When a male patron confronted Jesse about his inappropriate behavior, he said he was, quote, just trying to meet girls. He then moves on to another bar where he physically picked up 2 women without their consent, groped their bottoms, and began dancing around while holding them. Even after he put them down, he continued to touch them inappropriately to the point that the woman left the bar out of discomfort.
Of course.
He then went to a third bar where he grabbed a random woman's leg, pulled off her sock and her shoe, and began touching her foot. And when she told him to stop touching her and claimed that he looked at her in a crazy way, she got up and ran out of there.
It sounds like he was also, I think it sounds like he's also under the influence of substances here.
It sounds like it.
Okay.
He then went to a fourth bar where he groped yet another woman, and when a male patron again confronted him about his behavior, records show that he closed the bar tab around 1 a.m., only 10 minutes before he was seen on surveillance buying Hannah a drink at the Tempo bar.
Mm-hmm.
Cell phone records showed that Jesse most likely had his phone on airplane mode on the night of Hannah's disappearance, as there was no activity logged on his phone from 12:31 a.m. until 4:26 p.m. But normal levels of activity were logged before and after this time frame.
Okay. This is strong.
Oh, we have more.
Oh, okay.
Investigators discovered that Jesse grew up only 5 miles away from the abandoned property where Hannah's body was eventually located, and an eyewitness had seen Jesse's car parked on the abandoned property from 6 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. on the morning after she disappeared.
Wow.
Oh, and one more thing, Jesse was absent for a 7:30 a.m. football coach meeting that took place the morning after Hannah went missing.
Okay.
And now, a brief word from our sponsors.
We all know that feeling. You finally manage to get away on vacation and the worrying starts. Will that bogus "Beware of Dogs" sign keep your home safe? What about that fake camera you set up? And will someone finally find your old hide and key rock? That's where ADT comes in. All that stuff, it's safe-ish. It seems fine when you don't really think about it, but you know it truly doesn't work. Instead, ADT provides security solutions that keep you actually safe, giving you real peace of mind. Because vacation is supposed to be, relaxing. Don't settle for safe-ish. Visit ADT.com today to learn more. We all know that feeling. You finally manage to get away on vacation and the worrying starts. Will that bogus "Beware of Dogs" sign keep your home safe? What about that fake camera you set up? And will someone finally find your old hide and key rock? That's where ADT comes in. All that stuff, it's safe-ish. It seems fine when you don't really think about it, but you know it truly doesn't work. Instead, ADT provides security solutions that keep you actually safe, giving you real peace of mind. Because vacation is supposed to be, relaxing. Don't settle for safe-ish. Visit ADT.com today to learn more.
You know what? There was a few more things. I wasn't going to share it all, but I think we need to. There's just
okay, yeah.
Okay. A botany expert determined that the plant material found in Jesse's car matched the plant matter at the site of Hannah's remains. And in the days following Hannah's disappearance, Jesse's family, friends, and coworkers described him as exhibiting highly unusual behavior, which included isolating himself in his apartment, showing up late to work, refusing to answer text or phone calls, and a few people who saw him said that he had a swollen jaw and he complained of tooth pain.
He complained of tooth pain, huh? Yeah.
So now we have 3 solved cases, but there were also 2 other sexual assaults that were brought to light that involved Jesse Matthew. He was accused of sexually assaulting a 15-year-old girl while a student at Liberty University in 2000, and he was there playing football on a full-ride scholarship.
Okay.
In this attack, he picked up this girl from behind and tried to carry her into a bathroom. She was able to get away, and he picked her up again and groped her and tried to strangle her. She then bit him, and he let her go. Now, after these allegations, he abruptly left the college. I would say he was probably forced to leave, but I don't know. But then he left to enroll at Newport College. Unfortunately, Liberty never disclosed these allegations to the new school. So there was no official investigation done on the part of the incident.
Okay.
Only weeks into his first semester at Newport, he was then accused of sexually assaulting someone again. At this point, he dropped out of college and returned home to Fairfax. Unfortunately, again, no official investigation into this case.
All right.
And now that we're looking back, now we're seeing those signs that we thought we were seeing before.
Yes.
Where it's starting with lower level sexual assault, and then it's getting worse. Unfortunately, if there was a formal investigation in either one of these cases, it's possible that maybe he would have been punished and it could have prevented future harm. I don't know.
I don't think it would have prevented him from being he's a serial killer, so I don't think it would have prevented that.
Yeah. I wasn't able to find the defense's strategy in light of his past behavior. But all of this coupled with DNA evidence seems like a pretty ironclad case. So I don't think there's any shred of doubt here that Jesse is exactly where he needs to be. What I can tell you is that Jesse was serving his time in a state prison until 2019, and then he was relocated to another state prison to undergo treatment for stage 4 colon cancer. I couldn't find any record of whether or not he is still alive.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In the aftermath of the case, Hannah's parents told the press that the only consolation for them in this situation was that Hannah's murder somewhat had a purpose, because her death allowed investigators to finally find Jesse Matthew and put him away for the rest of his life. And while this was a terrible price to pay, Hannah's death changed the world. No other woman would ever be victimized by Jesse Matthew.
And it helped to solve 2 cases that might not have been solved had it not been.
So it brought closure.
It allowed those families to know the truth.
Mm-hmm. UVA also held a candlelight vigil for Hannah after she disappeared, and upon the completion of the trial, several awards and memorials were created in her memory. UVA granted the Hannah Graham Memorial Award, which is given annually to a student who emulates Hannah's qualities of embracing the French language, righting the world's wrongs, showing commitment to sustainable change, and has a zeal for tackling difficult problems. UVA also created what's called an alternative spring break opportunity. Now, this is where they partner with Habitat for Humanity to celebrate Hannah's helping spirit.
Oh.
There's also a memorial to Hannah on campus where students hold an annual remembrance ceremony. The state of Virginia also created the Hannah Graham Memorial Softball Tournament, which raises funds to support charities that help raise awareness to protect children from child predators.
Mm-hmm.
And really quickly, I want to point out that Morgan Harrington also had several memorials created to remember her as well.
Oh, yeah.
Morgan's mother, Jill, started a nonprofit called Help Save the Next Girl, and this was in Morgan's honor. There'll be a link to this organization in our show notes, but it is helpsavethenextgirl.com. This organization collaborates with law enforcement, colleges, and the media to raise awareness about identifying predatory behaviors and not leaving friends alone in public places. They also support and work on legislation to help make navigating the justice system easier for victims and their families. That's not all Jill did. Jill also wrote a memoir called Morgan Harrington, Murdered and Dead for Good. We'll also have a link in our show notes for anyone who would like to check that out.
I feel like I need to check that out, especially when I run my book club, you know?
Yeah. Lastly, Morgan's College, Virginia Tech, also created a scholarship in her memory that is annually awarded to a student in the Virginia Tech School of Medicine as Morgan worked there as a student intern in the summers.
Mm-hmm.
Both of these women's cases were extensively covered on 48 Hours episode called Deadly Connections. I also recommend you to check that out, and I'm surprised you have not seen that, Megan.
That's how I know it. Remember I said in the beginning? Yes. I was like, yes. I know this name. It was not Heather Graham. That's how I know it.
So then, as you know, Megan, 48 Hours conducted interviews with families and also Jill Harrington in particular. And she is a powerhouse of a woman and very inspiring. So definitely check it out.
Oh, I can't believe that I didn't instantly remember that episode, but now that makes sense. Okay.
Hannah and Morgan's murders are a terrible reminder that sometimes the worst predators can live in plain sight. For their grieving families, there aren't any life sentences that will bring back their children to life. But as Hannah's father told the press, if Hannah's death is what put a serial murderer behind bars for the rest of his life, then she gave her life to change the world.
Oh, I got chills on that.
I know, me too.
Yeah.
The story it's so tragic, but it is one of those stories that has a little bit of a light at the end because 2 other murders were solved and this monster is behind bars for the rest of his life and he can no longer harm people.
Absolutely.
All right. On that end note, that is all we have for today's episode. And again, if you have a case that you would like us to cover, go ahead and send us a message on the website, AbJack Entertainment. That's A-B as in boy, jackentertainment.com/campus-killings. Before we go today, if you'd like to support Campus Killings, consider subscribing to the show with an AbJack Insider subscription through Apple Podcasts.
Your subscription will get you VIP access to all the shows on the network that not only includes hundreds of episodes of ad-free listening, but also bonus content and early access to episodes.
For only $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year, you'll unlock a variety of listener benefits, and you'll be supporting this show in the process.
Head over to Apple Podcasts and search for either Campus Killings or AbJack, and you can start your subscription with a free trial.
Your support is greatly appreciated.
Campus Killings is hosted by Dr. Megan Sachs and Dr. Amy Schlossberg, with research and writing by Abigail Belcastro. It's produced by Mike Morford of AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to follow Campus Killings on social media. You can find Campus Killings on Twitter with the handle @CampusKillings or on Facebook at facebook.com/CampusKillings. You can also visit the show's homepage at campuskillings.com. Be sure to tune in every other Saturday for new episodes of Campus Killings.